The north is cold and full of whispers.
The hunter's gate opened onto darkness and the wolf's wood beyond. Robert Baratheon stood in the shadows of Winterfell's kennels, his breathing labored, his hands still shaking with rage. 3 hours had passed since the confrontation in the crypts. 3 hours since he had discovered that Eddard Stark, his brother, his friend, the man he trusted above all others, had hidden Rhaegar Targaryen's whelp under his own roof for 14 years. 3 hours since Ned's men had surrounded him with swords drawn and made him a prisoner in this frozen wasteland. Sir Barristan Selmy stood beside him, still in his white cloak, his hand resting on his sword hilt. The Lord Commander of the Kingsguard had maintained perfect composure throughout their captivity, but Robert could see the calculation in his eyes. Barristan was planning, evaluating, waiting for the moment. That moment had come. The guard who had been watching their tower chamber lay unconscious in the corridor above, his skull cracked from Barristan's pommel strike. 2 more guards lay dead near the base of the stairs. Barristan's work, silent and efficient. The old knight moved through Winterfell like a ghost, and Robert had followed, his bulk making stealth nearly impossible, but his desperation overriding caution. "We need horses," Robert whispered. His voice sounded too loud in the quiet night. "And supplies. We can't reach, we take what we can carry and move fast," Barristan interrupted softly. "Horses from the stable? Food from the kitchens? We use the hunter's gate. It opens directly to the fields and forest. Small parties use it regularly without drawing attention. And then? South," Barristan said. "To the neck. Through Moat Cailin to the Riverlands. We find Lannister forces and get you to safety." "That's over 1,000 miles," Robert said. The enormity of it pressed down on him. "Through hostile territory, with every northern lord hunting us." "Then we better not get caught, Your Grace," Barristan said. They moved toward the stables. Robert's heart hammered in his chest. He was 54 years old, fat from years of wine and feasting, completely out of condition for this kind of exertion. Already his legs ached, his lungs burned, but rage drove him forward. Rage at Ned's betrayal, rage at the Targaryen bastard who had brought this down on them, rage at himself for not seeing it sooner. Jon Snow, no, Jon Targaryen, Rhaegar's son. The boy had been right there in front of him at the feast, dark-haired and gray-eyed and looking so much like a Stark that Robert had never questioned it. But in the crypts, standing before Lyanna's statue, the resemblance had been unmistakable. The melancholy, the grave intensity, Rhaegar's face staring back at him, Robert's hands clenched into fists. "I'll kill him. I swear by all the gods I'll see that boy's head on a spike." The stables were quiet. A single stable hand dozed in the corner. Barristan moved past him without waking him, selected 2 strong horses, and began saddling them with practiced efficiency. "Your Grace," Barristan said quietly, "we need to prevent ravens from leaving Winterfell. If Stark sends word south that we've escaped, where's the rookery?" Robert demanded. "In the Maester's tower, connected to the bell tower by a covered bridge on the 4th floor." Robert looked toward the Maester's chambers. Maester Luwin, the old man who had served Winterfell for decades, who had educated the Stark children, who had probably known about Jon's true parentage all along. "We burn it," Robert said. "The whole rookery. Kill the ravens. No messages leave this castle. The Maester will try to stop us," Barristan warned. "Then we go through him," Robert said flatly. They left the horses saddled and ready, then made their way toward the bell tower. The castle was quiet. Most of the garrison was either sleeping or on the walls. With Robb Stark's army deployed south and Jon Snow's existence now public knowledge, Winterfell's defenses were stretched thin. Robert counted perhaps 30 guards on active duty, 30 men between him and freedom. They climbed the bell tower stairs. The covered bridge stretched ahead of them, connecting to the rookery on the 2nd floor. Moonlight filtered through the wooden slats, casting bars of shadow across the walkway. Halfway across, a door opened. Maester Luwin emerged from his chambers, carrying a candle. He saw them and froze. "Your Grace," Luwin said. His voice was steady despite the fear in his eyes. "You should not be out of your chambers. Lord Stark is a traitor," Robert snarled. "And you knew. All these years you knew about the Targaryen bastard." "Jon is not," Luwin started. Robert moved faster than anyone expected. For all his bulk, for all his age, Robert Baratheon had been the strongest man in the 7 Kingdoms, once. That strength had faded but not vanished entirely. He crossed the distance in 3 strides, grabbed Lewin by his gray robes, and slammed him against the bridge railing. "He's Rhaegar's spawn," Robert roared, the rage that had been building since the crypts exploded. "Lyanna died giving birth to that dragon's whelp, and you all lied to me." "Your Grace, please," Lewin gasped. Robert's hands found the old man's throat. Squeezed. Lewin's eyes bulged. His hands clawed at Robert's wrists, but the king's grip was iron. "Robert, no," Barristan said sharply. "Your Grace, he's an unarmed man. A maester." "This is not—" "He knew," Robert screamed. Spittle flew from his mouth. His face had gone purple. "They all knew. Ned, this old fuck, everyone. They hid a Targaryen pretender and lied to their king." Lewin's struggles weakened. His face turned gray. Barristan grabbed Robert's shoulder. "Your Grace, we don't have time for this. The noise guards will come. We need to burn the rookery and go. Now." Robert's hands tightened for 1 more second. Then he shoved Lewin away. The maester collapsed against the railing, gasping and clutching his throat. "Burn it," Robert said. "Burn it all." Barristan moved to the rookery door. Inside, dozens of ravens shifted and cawed in their cages. He pulled a torch from the wall bracket, touched it to the straw bedding, and stepped back. The fire caught instantly. Dry straw and old wood. The ravens shrieked as flames consumed their perches. Black smoke billowed from the rookery, thick and choking. Lewin staggered to his feet, still gasping. "No, you can't. Lord Stark must be warned." He stumbled toward the rookery door. Barristan moved to intercept him, but Lewin was desperate. He pushed past the knight and plunged into the burning room, trying to reach the cages, trying to save even one bird to carry his message. The roof collapsed. Burning timbers crashed down. Lewin's scream cut off abruptly. Barristan pulled Robert back as flames roared through the doorway. "He's dead," Barristan said quietly. "We need to go now, before the whole tower catches fire." They ran. Down the stairs, across the courtyard. Behind them, bells began ringing. Shouts rose. The fire was visible now, flames climbing into the night sky. Guards rushed toward the bell tower with buckets of water. Robert and Barristan reached the stables, mounted their horses. The hunter's gate stood ahead, a small postern door unguarded in the chaos. They rode through it at a gallop. The wolfswood swallowed them. Dark trees, cold wind, the sounds of Winterfell's alarm bells fading behind them as they pushed deeper into the forest. Robert looked back once, saw smoke rising against the stars, saw torches moving on Winterfell's walls as guards searched for the escaped king. Then the forest closed around them, and Winterfell disappeared from view. They rode south through the night, through the wolfswood, across frozen streams, through clearings where moonlight turned the snow to silver. Barristan led, picking paths that avoided the main roads. Robert followed, his body screaming with every mile. By dawn they had put 20 miles between themselves and Winterfell. They stopped in a dense thicket, dismounted and collapsed against tree trunks. Robert's hands shook. Not from cold, from the adrenaline crash, from the realization of what he had just done. He had killed a maester, burned the rookery, escaped imprisonment, and now he was a fugitive in hostile territory, with over 1,000 miles between him and safety. "What have I done?" Robert whispered. "What you had to do, Your Grace," Barristan said. He was breathing hard but controlled. "Lord Stark gave you no choice. He chose the Targaryen boy over his king. That is treason. We did what we needed to survive." "Lewin," Robert's voice caught. "He was just an old man. A maester. He stood between you and freedom," Barristan said firmly. "He would have sent ravens, would have had every northern lord hunting us within hours. His death bought us time. That's all that matters now." Robert closed his eyes, saw Lewin's face, saw the old man's desperate attempt to reach the ravens, saw the roof collapse and end it. "I'm a kinslayer now," Robert thought. "No. Worse. I'm a maester killer. A man who murders the unarmed to save his own skin." But the alternative had been staying prisoner, watching Ned Stark crown himself or bend the knee to Stannis, watching the realm tear itself apart while he sat powerless in a cell. "We keep moving," Robert said. He forced himself to his feet. Every muscle protested. "How long to the neck, at this pace?" 12 days if we're lucky, Barristan said. The causeway through the swamps takes another 12. Then we're in the Riverlands proper. 24 days minimum, Robert said. A month if we run into trouble. We'll run into trouble, Your Grace, Barristan said. The question is whether we survive it. They mounted, rode south. The Wolf's Wood stretched endlessly around them, and with every mile Robert felt the weight of his choices pressing down. He had started a war, not the war that had been brewing. That was Ned's doing, hiding the Targaryen boy. But this war, the one that would come from his escape, from Lewin's death, from everything that followed, this was on him. Good, Robert thought. The rage steadied him. Let it be war. Let the whole realm burn if that's what it takes. But that dragon's whelp dies. I swear it. Jon Snow dies screaming. The news reached Ned Stark at dawn. He was in the great hall breaking his fast with Catelyn and the remaining household when Jory Cassel burst through the doors. The captain of the guard's face was white. My lord, the king has escaped. The hall went silent. Every eye turned to Ned. Escaped? Ned's voice was dangerously quiet. How? During the night, Sir Barristan killed 2 guards. They went through the Hunter's Gate on horseback. We found the stable hand unconscious. They took 2 horses and supplies. Send riders, Ned said immediately. Track them. Bring them back. My lord. Jory hesitated. There's more. The bell tower. There was a fire. The rookery burned. Maester Lewin is dead. Catelyn gasped. Ned felt the words like a physical blow. Dead? His voice cracked. Lewin is dead? We found his body in the rookery ruins, Jory said quietly. It appears he tried to save the ravens from the fire. The roof collapsed on him. Ned stood so abruptly his chair fell backward. Show me. They climbed to the bell tower. The rookery was a blackened shell, charred timbers, ashes, and in the center, barely recognizable, Maester Lewin's body. Ned knelt beside the corpse. This man had delivered his children, had educated them, had served Winterfell with absolute loyalty for decades. And now he lay dead because Robert Baratheon had needed to prevent ravens from flying. He didn't just escape, Ned said softly. He made sure we couldn't warn anyone, burned the rookery, killed Lewin to keep him from sending messages. Robert wouldn't. Catelyn started. Robert would do anything when his blood is up, Ned interrupted. You didn't see his face in the crypts. The rage, the hatred. He's capable of this. He's capable of worse. What do we do? Catelyn asked. Ned looked at Lewin's body, at the destroyed rookery, at the evidence of Robert's desperation and violence. We send riders to every holdfasts between here and the neck, Ned said. We tell them the king has escaped and is heading south. They're to capture him if possible. Kill him if necessary. Ned, that's regicide, Catelyn said. If northern forces kill the king, Robert stopped being my king when he tried to murder Jon, Ned said flatly. And he stopped being anyone's king when he killed an unarmed maester to cover his escape. He's a fugitive now, a criminal, and if he reaches the Lannisters, if he allies with Tywin, he becomes the greatest threat we face. He won't make it through the neck, Catelyn said. The Cranogmen are loyal to us. They know every inch of those swamps. If Robert tries to use the causeway, send word to Greywater Watch, Ned ordered. Tell Howland Reed that Robert Baratheon is heading south. Tell him to stop the king by any means necessary. And tell him, Ned's voice hardened, tell him that Robert issued a death warrant for Jon Snow. That makes him an enemy of House Stark. No mercy. Jory nodded and left to dispatch riders. Ned remained kneeling beside Lewin's body. I'm sorry, old friend. I should have protected you better. Should have seen this coming. Ned, Catelyn said gently. We need to inform Robb. He's in the field with Jon. If Robert reaches the Lannisters, if he rallies forces and comes north, he'll come for Jon, Ned said. That's all Robert cares about now. Not the throne. Not the kingdom. Just killing Rhaegar's son. It's become an obsession. Then we need to protect Jon, Catelyn said. Bring him back to Winterfell. Put him somewhere safe. There is nowhere safe, Ned said. Not anymore. Robert will hunt him to the ends of the earth. We'll spend every coin in the royal treasury putting a price on Jon's head. We'll turn every cutthroat and sellsword in Westeros into a bounty hunter. He stood. The only way to protect Jon is to win this war before Robert can rally his forces. We need to strike fast. Hit Tywin before Robert reaches him. End this before it becomes a war of extermination. They held Maester Luwin's funeral that afternoon. The entire castle attended. Servants who had known him for decades. Guards he had treated for injuries. The Stark children, Bran, Rickon, Sansa, Arya, all weeping for the gentle old man who had been part of their lives since birth. Ned spoke the words. Maester Luwin served Winterfell and House Stark with honor for 40 years. He brought my children into this world. He educated them. He gave them wisdom and kindness and learning. And he died trying to do his duty, trying to warn us of danger. We will remember him. The North remembers. The North remembers, the crowd echoed. They buried him in the lich-yard beside Winterfell's other faithful servants. The septon said prayers. The grave was covered with earth and a simple stone marker. Maester Luwin, servant of Winterfell, keeper of ravens, teacher of children. After the funeral, Ned returned to his solar. Catelyn found him there hours later, staring at a letter he'd been trying to write. "What are you writing?" she asked. "A letter to Robb," Ned said, telling him about Robert's escape, warning him that the king will likely ally with Tywin, informing him that Jon is now the target of a royal death warrant. "Will the letter reach him?" Catelyn asked. "With the rookery burned, we still have the ravens at Greywater Watch," Ned said. "And there are maesters at White Harbor, at the Last Hearth, at other holdfasts. We can get messages through. It will just take longer." "How long?" "Days instead of hours," Ned said. "Maybe a week before Robb knows what's happened. By then, Robert might already have reached the neck. Might already be fighting through the Crannogmen. Howland won't let him pass," Catelyn said with certainty. "The Crannogmen are absolutely loyal to House Stark. They'll stop Robert. Kill him if they have to." "I hope you're right," Ned said quietly. "Because if Robert reaches Tywin alive, this war becomes something far worse than a conflict over Jon's parentage. It becomes a war of annihilation. Robert will not rest until every Stark is dead and Jon's head decorates the walls of King's Landing." He finished the letter and sealed it. Called for a rider to take it to White Harbor, where a raven could carry it south to wherever Robb's forces were currently engaged. Then Ned sat in his solar as darkness fell and wondered how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. 6 days ago, Robert had been his friend, his brother in all but blood, the man he had fought beside in rebellion, the man he had helped win a throne. Now Robert was a fugitive and a murderer, an enemy who would stop at nothing to kill Jon. And Ned had no idea how to stop him. Robert and Barristan rode hard for 12 days. They avoided villages, stayed off the main roads, slept in forests and abandoned farmhouses, ate whatever they could hunt or steal, rabbits, fish from streams, stale bread from unguarded storage sheds. Robert's body rebelled against the punishment. He had grown soft in 15 years of kingship. Too much wine, too much rich food, too many nights lying with whores instead of training in the yard. His muscles screamed, his back ached constantly. Saddle sores opened and bled, but he kept riding, kept pushing south, because the alternative was capture, execution, watching Ned Stark hand the realm over to Stannis, or crown himself king in the north. On the 5th day, they encountered their first northern patrol. 20 riders wearing the gray and white of House Stark, searching the forest. Robert and Barristan hid in a ravine, horses' mouths covered to prevent noise, and watched the patrol pass within 50 yards. "They're hunting us systematically," Barristan whispered. "Ned sent men to every road and track between here and the neck." "Can we avoid them?" Robert asked. "For a time," Barristan said. "But the closer we get to the neck, the tighter the net becomes. Eventually, we'll have to fight or surrender." "We fight," Robert said. On the 8th day, they ran out of food. Barristan killed a deer with his sword, a precise thrust through the heart, and they ate venison roasted over a hidden fire. It was the best meal Robert had tasted in days, and it gave him strength to continue. On the 10th day, it started snowing. Not the light flurries Robert had seen in King's Landing occasionally. Real northern snow. Heavy, constant, covering everything in white. The temperature plummeted. Robert's breath frosted in the air. His fingers went numb even inside riding gloves. "We need shelter," Barristan said. "If we stay outside in this, we'll freeze." They found an abandoned cottage, some farmer's home, long since vacated. The roof leaked and the hearth was cracked, but it blocked the wind. They built a small fire and huddled beside it, watching snow pile up outside. "How much farther?" Robert asked, His teeth chattered despite the fire. 2 days to the neck if the weather breaks, Barristan said. 5 if it doesn't. And your grace, he hesitated. The causeway through the neck will be the most dangerous part. It's the only dry passage through the swamps. Moat Cailin controls it, and the Crannog men patrol everything. Who holds Moat Cailin now? Robert asked. Unknown, your grace. During peacetime, it's lightly garrisoned by northern forces, but with war declared, Lord Stark may have reinforced it. Or, Barristan paused, there are reports that the Ironborn seized it during the chaos, Balon Greyjoy taking advantage of the mainland's distraction. Ironborn or Northmen, Robert muttered. Either way, they'll try to kill us. We might be able to bribe the Ironborn, Barristan suggested. They're sellswords at heart. Promise them gold, lands, titles when you retake the throne. They might let us pass. And if they don't, then we fight through, Barristan said, or find another way. Perhaps a ship from one of the coastal villages, sail around the neck entirely. To where? White Harbor? That's Manderley territory. They're Stark bannermen. A fishing village, then. Somewhere small. We buy passage on a ship, heading south, land at Salt Pans or Maidenpool. Work our way inland to the Riverlands. Robert considered it. The sea route avoided the neck, but it also meant trusting their lives to sailors who could easily sell them out. One letter to the Manderleys and White Harbor's fleet would hunt them down. We try the causeway first, Robert decided. If that fails, we consider the sea. But I'm not putting my fate in the hands of fishermen and merchants. They waited out the storm for 2 days. When it finally broke, they rode south again, pushing toward the neck. The land changed. The forests thinned. Streams became more common. The air grew damper, colder in a different way. The wet cold of swamps rather than the dry cold of the north. And then they saw it. The neck, an endless expanse of black water, gray-green vegetation, and mist. The causeway stretched ahead, a narrow road of logs and planks raised above the swamp, barely wide enough for 2 horses to ride abreast. It ran straight south toward 3 massive towers rising from the swamp in the distance. Moat Cailin? The towers are half ruined, Barristan observed, but still formidable. And if the causeway is defended, an arrow hissed out of the mist, struck the log inches from Robert's horse. The animal reared. Robert fought to control it. Ambush, Barristan shouted. More arrows, coming from the swamp on both sides of the causeway. Robert couldn't see the attackers. They were hidden in the fog and vegetation. But he heard them. Movement in the water, the soft splash of paddles. Crannog men, ride. Robert spurred his horse forward. Barristan followed. Arrows flew around them. One struck Robert's saddle. Another grazed Barristan's shoulder, drawing blood through the white cloak. They galloped down the causeway. Behind them, Robert heard horns blowing. Shouts in a language he didn't recognize. The Crannog men were coordinating, communicating, herding them. A net flew out of the mist, spread wide, dropped over Barristan's horse. The animal crashed down, throwing Barristan. The old knight rolled, came up with sword drawn and cut himself free of the net in 3 strokes. Your grace, go, Barristan shouted. I'll hold them. I'm not leaving you, Robert roared. You're the king, Barristan shot back. Your life matters more than mine. Go. The hunter's gate opened onto darkness and the wolf's wood beyond. Robert Baratheon stood in the shadows of Winterfell's kennels. His breathing labored, his hands still shaking with rage. 3 hours had passed since the confrontation in the crypts. 3 hours since he had discovered that Eddard Stark, his brother, his friend, the man he trusted above all others, had hidden Rhaegar Targaryen's whelp under his own roof for 14 years. 3 hours since Ned's men had surrounded him with swords drawn and made him a prisoner in this frozen wasteland. Sir Barristan Selmy stood beside him, still in his white cloak, his hand resting on his sword hilt. The Lord Commander of the Kingsguard had maintained perfect composure throughout their captivity, but Robert could see the calculation in his eyes. Barristan was planning, evaluating, waiting for the moment. That moment had come. The guard who had been watching their tower chamber lay unconscious in the corridor above, his skull cracked from Barristan's pommel strike. 2 more guards lay dead near the base of the stairs. Barristan's work, silent and efficient. The old knight moved through Winterfell like a ghost, and Robert had followed, his bulk making stealth nearly impossible, but his desperation overriding caution. We need horses, Robert whispered, His voice sounded too loud in the quiet night. And supplies. We can't reach, we take what we can carry and move fast, Barristan interrupted softly. Horses from the stable, food from the kitchens. We use the hunter's gate. It opens directly to the fields and forest. Small parties use it regularly without drawing attention. And then? South, Barristan said. To the neck. Through Moat Cailin to the Riverlands. We find Lannister forces and get you to safety. That's over 1,000 miles, Robert said. The enormity of it pressed down on him. Through hostile territory, with every northern lord hunting us. Then we better not get caught, Your Grace, Barristan said. They moved toward the stables. Robert's heart hammered in his chest. He was 54 years old, fat from years of wine and feasting, completely out of condition for this kind of exertion. Already his legs ached, his lungs burned, but rage drove him forward. Rage at Ned's betrayal. Rage at the Targaryen bastard who had brought this down on them. Rage at himself for not seeing it sooner. Jon Snow. No, Jon Targaryen. Rhaegar's son. The boy had been right there in front of him at the feast. Dark-haired and gray-eyed and looking so much like a Stark that Robert had never questioned it. But in the crypts, standing before Lyanna's statue, the resemblance had been unmistakable. The melancholy, the grave intensity, Rhaegar's face staring back at him. Robert's hands clenched into fists. I'll kill him. I swear by all the gods I'll see that boy's head on a spike. The stables were quiet. A single stable hand dozed in the corner. Barristan moved past him without waking him, selected 2 strong horses, and began saddling them with practiced efficiency. Your Grace, Barristan said quietly, we need to prevent ravens from leaving Winterfell. If Stark sends word south that we've escaped, where's the rookery? Robert demanded. In the Maester's tower, connected to the bell tower by a covered bridge on the 4th floor. Robert looked toward the Maester's chambers. Maester Luwin, the old man who had served Winterfell for decades, who had educated the Stark children, who had probably known about Jon's true parentage all along. We burn it, Robert said. The whole rookery. Kill the ravens. No messages leave this castle. The Maester will try to stop us, Barristan warned. Then we go through him, Robert said flatly. They left the horses saddled and ready, then made their way toward the bell tower. The castle was quiet. Most of the garrison was either sleeping or on the walls. With Robb Stark's army deployed south and Jon Snow's existence now public knowledge, Winterfell's defenses were stretched thin. Robert counted perhaps 30 guards on active duty, 30 men between him and freedom. They climbed the bell tower stairs. The covered bridge stretched ahead of them, connecting to the rookery on the 2nd floor. Moonlight filtered through the wooden slats, casting bars of shadow across the walkway. Halfway across, a door opened. Maester Luwin emerged from his chambers, carrying a candle. He saw them and froze. Your Grace, Luwin said. His voice was steady despite the fear in his eyes. You should not be out of your chambers. Lord Stark is a traitor, Robert snarled. And you knew. All these years you knew about the Targaryen bastard. Jon is not, Luwin started. Robert moved faster than anyone expected. For all his bulk, for all his age, Robert Baratheon had been the strongest man in the 7 Kingdoms, once. That strength had faded but not vanished entirely. He crossed the distance in 3 strides, grabbed Luwin by his gray robes, and slammed him against the bridge railing. He's Rhaegar's spawn, Robert roared, the rage that had been building since the crypts exploded. Lyanna died giving birth to that dragon's whelp, and you all lied to me. Your Grace, please, Luwin gasped. Robert's hands found the old man's throat. Squeezed. Luwin's eyes bulged. His hands clawed at Robert's wrists, but the king's grip was iron. Robert, no, Barristan said sharply. Your Grace, he's an unarmed man. A maester. This is not— He knew, Robert screamed. Spittle flew from his mouth. His face had gone purple. They all knew. Ned, this old fuck, everyone? They hid a Targaryen pretender and lied to their king. Luwin's struggles weakened. His face turned gray. Barristan grabbed Robert's shoulder. Your Grace, we don't have time for this. The noise guards will come. We need to burn the rookery and go. Now. Robert's hands tightened for one more second. Then he shoved Luwin away. The maester collapsed against the railing, gasping and clutching his throat. Burn it, Robert said. Burn it all. Barristan moved to the rookery door. Inside, dozens of ravens shifted and cawed in their cages. He pulled a torch from the wall bracket, touched it to the straw bedding, and stepped back. The fire caught instantly. Dry straw and old wood. The ravens shrieked as flames consumed their perches. Black smoke billowed from the rookery, thick and choking. Luwin staggered to his feet, still gasping. No, you can't. Lord Stark must be warned. He stumbled toward the rookery door. Barristan moved to intercept him, but Luwin was desperate. He pushed past the knight and plunged into the burning room, trying to reach the cages, trying to save even one bird to carry his message. The roof collapsed. Burning timbers crashed down. Luwin's scream cut off abruptly. Barristan pulled Robert back as flames roared through the doorway. He's dead, Barristan said quietly. We need to go. Villages appeared in the distance. Though Robert avoided them all, he knew what he looked like now. Ragged, filthy, bearded, desperate. Any village that saw him would either turn him in to the nearest Stark loyalist or try to collect whatever bounty Ned had surely placed on his head. So he walked, and tried not to think about how far he still had to go. On the 8th day, he encountered his first Riverlands patrol, 50 mounted men wearing the red salmon of House Vipren. They were searching the roads systematically, questioning travelers, inspecting wagons. Robert watched from a tree line half a mile away as they stopped a merchant's caravan and conducted a thorough search. Looking for me, Robert realized. Word has spread. Every house between here and Harrenhal is hunting the escaped king. He waited until nightfall, then circled wide around the patrol's position. It added 6 miles to his journey and cost him precious time. But getting caught now would end everything. The infected wounds on his feet were spreading. Red lines traced up his ankles. Blood poisoning. Robert had seen it before, in wounded soldiers during the rebellion. Men who seemed fine at first, then suddenly fevered and dying within days. He needed a maester, needed proper treatment. But maesters served lords, and lords would turn him over to the Starks. So he pressed on, limping now, each step sending jolts of pain up his legs. On the 12th day, he stumbled into a burned village. The destruction was recent. Smoke still rose from some of the ruins. Bodies lay in the street, bloated and rotting. Men, women, children. No one had been spared. Robert walked through the carnage with mounting horror. This was not battle. This was massacre. Deliberate, systematic slaughter. He found tracks leading away from the village. Heavy cavalry. Hundreds of horses. And a banner fragment caught on a fence post. Crimson with a lion. Lannisters. Tywin's men had done this. Or Rhaegar Clegane, Robert thought. The mountain was Tywin's mad dog, unleashed on the Riverlands to terrorize the population. This looked like his work. The bodies bore signs of torture. The buildings had been looted before being burned. This was terror warfare, designed to break the small folks' will to resist. Robert had seen such tactics during the rebellion. Aerys had ordered villages burned, hostages killed, whole families put to the sword. Robert had sworn when he took the throne that he would never allow such atrocities under his rule. But he had failed. Failed to control the Lannisters. Failed to notice Cersei's infidelity. Failed to see Jon Snow's true parentage. Failed in every way that mattered. When I have my throne back, Robert swore, this stops. No more burning villages. No more slaughtering small folk. We fight with honor or we don't deserve to rule. But first, he had to survive. Had to reach Tywin. Had to reclaim his power. He found a well that hadn't been poisoned and drank deeply, refilled his water skin, searched the ruins for food but found nothing. The Lannisters had taken everything edible. As he prepared to leave, Robert heard horses. He dove into the ruins of a barn, pressing himself against charred timber. Through gaps in the burned wood, he watched riders approach, 20 men in Lannister crimson. Leading them was a figure Robert recognized even at a distance. Rhaegar Clegane. The mountain that rides, 8 feet tall in armor that was blackened steel, riding a war horse that would have collapsed under any normal man's weight. His sword was a great sword that most men would need both hands to lift. Rhaegar wielded it one-handed, like a toy. The mountain and his men rode through the burned village, surveying their handiwork. One of the riders laughed at something. Another kicked a corpse out of his path. Robert's hand moved to his sword. Every instinct screamed to step out of hiding, to challenge these butchers. to kill them for what they had done, but he was one man. Fat, wounded, exhausted, they were 20 trained killers, led by the most dangerous fighter in Westeros, after Barristan Selmy. Barristan, who was dead, killed buying Robert time to escape. Robert forced himself to remain still, to watch as the monsters rode through their killing ground and eventually departed south. When they were gone, Robert emerged, shaking, not from fear, from rage, at Gregor, at Tywin for unleashing him, at himself for being too weak to stop it. Soon, Robert promised the dead villagers, soon I'll have my throne back. And when I do, Gregor Clegane dies. I'll kill him myself. Smash his skull the way I smashed Rhaegar's. He walked south, following the Lannister tracks from a safe distance. If Gregor was riding toward a base, following him might lead Robert to Lannister forces, to Tywin, to safety and alliance. The days blurred together. Walk, hide from patrols, drink from streams, eat whatever he could scavenge, roots, berries, once a dead rabbit he found that had been killed by a hawk. The meat was rank, but Robert forced it down anyway. The fever came on the 18th day. Robert woke shivering despite the summer heat. His vision swam. The red lines from his infected feet had reached his knees. His entire lower body felt like it was on fire. Blood poisoning, Robert knew. I'm dying, slowly but surely. He had maybe days left, maybe less. Without treatment, the infection would spread to his heart and kill him. But Harrenhal couldn't be far now. Gregor's patrol had been heading southeast with purpose. They were returning to base. Robert just had to follow. He walked, stumbled really, fell twice and barely managed to get back up. His breathing came in gasps. Sweat soaked his ragged clothes despite the chills racking his body. Keep moving, he told himself. Lyanna died bringing Rhaegar's bastard into the world. I'll be damned if I die before I put that boy in the ground. The hatred was all that kept him going. Hatred for Jon Snow, for Rhaegar, for Ned's betrayal, for everything that had brought him to this, a dying king limping through the riverlands, alone and abandoned. On the 20th day, he saw Harrenhal. The castle rose from the landscape like a monument to hubris. 5 massive towers, each large enough to house 100 men. Walls thick enough that siege engines would spend months trying to break them. All of it blackened and melted by dragon fire 300 years ago, giving the entire structure a nightmarish quality. And flying from the tallest tower, the crimson and gold of House Lannister. Robert nearly wept with relief. He had made it. Against all odds, through ambush and infection and starvation, he had reached Tywin Lannister's stronghold. He approached cautiously. Lannister patrols ringed the castle, cavalry units watching the roads, infantry guarding the gates. Robert kept to the forest until he found a small patrol of 10 men watering their horses at a stream. Then he stepped out of the trees, raised his hands to show he was unarmed, and spoke. I am Robert Baratheon, first of his name, King of the Andals and the First Men. I demand to see Lord Tywin Lannister immediately. The soldiers stared at him, looked at each other. One laughed. Sure you are, the soldier said. And I'm Aegon the Conqueror. Get lost, beggar, before we— Look at my face, Robert roared. The effort sent him into a coughing fit, but he forced himself to continue. I am your king. I escaped Winterfell. I crossed the neck. I've been walking for 3 weeks and I'm half dead from infection, but I am Robert Baratheon, and you will take me to Tywin, where I will have your head on a spike when I recover. The soldiers looked closer, saw past the beard and filth and ragged clothes, saw the face that had been on coins for 15 years, saw the eyes that had stared down the Targaryen dynasty. 7 hells, one of them whispered. It really is him. It's the king. They surrounded him, not threatening, protective. One dismounted and offered Robert his horse. Robert tried to climb into the saddle and collapsed. The world spun. Darkness crept in at the edges of his vision. The last thing Robert heard before losing consciousness was a soldier shouting, Get the maester! Now! The king is dying. Robert woke in a bed. A real bed. Clean sheets, soft pillows, a fire crackling in a hearth. For a moment he thought he was back in King's Landing, that the entire nightmare had been a fever dream. Then he saw where he was. A chamber in Harrenhal. Stone walls blackened by ancient dragon fire. A window looking out over devastated Riverland's countryside. And standing beside his bed watching him with those cold green eyes was Tywin Lannister. Your Grace, Tywin said. His voice was neutral. You look terrible. I've had a difficult month, Robert said. His voice was hoarse. How long was I unconscious? 3 days. The maester treated your blood poisoning. He says you'll live, though you came very close to dying. Another day and the infection would have reached your heart. Robert looked down at his feet. They were wrapped in fresh bandages. The pain had dulled to a manageable throb. 3 days. What's happened in 3 days? Much, Tywin said. He moved to a table, poured 2 cups of wine, and handed one to Robert. But first, we need to establish certain facts. You escaped Winterfell. You crossed the neck, and you came here seeking my help. Why should I give it? Because you need me as much as I need you, Robert said. He forced himself to sit up despite the weakness in his limbs. The realm is tearing itself apart. Renly crowned himself at Highgarden with the Tyrells backing him. Stannis is in the north with Stark. And I'm told Jon Snow, Rhaegar's bastard, is leading northern forces in the field. The 7 kingdoms need their rightful king. Their rightful king ran away from his captors and arrived at my castle half dead, Tywin observed. Not exactly an inspiring image. I didn't run, Robert said. His voice hardened. I escaped after Eddard Stark imprisoned me for trying to execute a Targaryen pretender. After he chose that dragon's whelp over his oldest friend. After he committed high treason by hiding Rhaegar's son for 14 years. Yes, Tywin said. About that. The boy, Jon Snow. Is it true? Is he genuinely Rhaegar Targaryen's son? I saw him, Robert said. Saw him standing in front of Lyanna's tomb. The resemblance was unmistakable. Rhaegar's face, his eyes, his manner, Ned as much as admitted it, said Lyanna loved Rhaegar, that they married in secret, that the boy is legitimate. Tywin's expression remained neutral, but Robert saw the calculation behind those eyes. A Targaryen heir, hidden in the north for 14 years, that complicates matters significantly. It simplifies them, Robert countered. The boy is a threat to my throne, to the stability of the realm. He needs to die, and anyone who protects him is a traitor. That includes Eddard Stark. Eddard Stark is currently allied with your brother Stannis, Tywin said. They command approximately 25,000 men between them. They hold the north, which is effectively impregnable behind Moat Cailin, and they're coordinating with the Riverlands, your wife's family, the Tullys, who have declared for Stark. My wife, Robert spat the words. Is she still here? Cersei? Your wife is currently held prisoner at Winterfell, Tywin said. Along with your children. They were captured when you were. Eddard Stark holds them as hostages. Robert felt something twist in his chest. Despite everything, despite Cersei's coldness, her obvious contempt for him, the loveless sham of their marriage, she was still his wife. His queen, and his children were prisoners. Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, they're all captive? Yes, Tywin said. Then we get them back, Robert said. That's the price of my alliance with you, Tywin. You help me reclaim my throne. We destroy the Starks together. And we free my family. Tywin was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully measured. Your Grace, there is a matter we must discuss. Regarding your children. What matter? Stannis Baratheon has made certain accusations, Tywin said, regarding their legitimacy. Robert's eyes narrowed. What accusations? He claims that Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen are not your biological children, that they are the products of an incestuous relationship between Queen Cersei and her twin brother Jaime. The words hung in the air like smoke. Robert stared at Tywin, waiting for the denial, for the outrage, for anything except the cold, clinical delivery of an accusation that would shatter kingdoms. That's insane, Robert said. But even as he spoke, doubt crept in. He thought of Joffrey's golden hair, Myrcella's golden hair, Tommen's golden hair, all of them fair-haired like Cersei, not dark like Robert, all of them looking nothing like their supposed father. Stannis claims to have proof, Tywin continued. Genealogical records showing that all Baratheon children in history have had black hair. The seed is strong, he says. Yet all of Cersei's children are golden-haired. That's not proof, Robert said. That's speculation. Coincidence. Perhaps, Tywin said. But it's dangerous speculation. If Stannis spreads this story, if lords begin to question the succession, your dynasty becomes unstable. Civil war becomes inevitable, not over competing claimants, but over whether the heir is legitimate at all. Robert's hands clenched the bedsheets. You're not denying it. I'm presenting facts, Tywin said. Stannis has made an accusation. That accusation is now spreading across the realm. Whether it's true or false is almost irrelevant. What matters is that people believe it. And belief shapes reality in politics. Do you believe it? Robert demanded. Tywin's face remained impassive. I believe my daughter values power above all else. I believe she resents you for the reasons queens have always resented kings. You're a drunk who whores and ignores your duties. I believe she's capable of great foolishness in pursuit of what she wants. He paused. But I also believe that accusing her publicly serves no one's interests. Not yours. Not mine. Not the realm's. That's not an answer, Robert said. It's the only answer you're going to get, Tywin replied. Because the truth doesn't matter anymore, Your Grace. What matters is what we do next. And I propose the following. We form an alliance. My forces combined with yours, we have approximately 35,000 men here at Harrenhal, and another 10,000 in training at Casterly Rock. We march north. We crush the Stark-Tully alliance. We free your wife and children. And then we deal with Renly and Stannis. And Jon Snow? Robert asked. The Targaryen boy? D's, Tywin said flatly. Publicly and without mercy, we make an example of him. Show the realm what happens to Targaryen pretenders. Your brother Stannis wanted to kill Daenerys Targaryen when she was pregnant and helpless across the narrow sea. Surely we can justify executing a boy who has taken up arms against his rightful king. Robert felt the rage that had sustained him through the long walk south crystallize into purpose. Yes, Jon Snow dies. I want his head. Want to mount it on a spike above the gates of King's Landing, where everyone can see what happens to Dragonspawn. Then we have an accord, Tywin said. But I must insist on one condition. What condition? You publicly annul your marriage to Cersei, Tywin said. Robert stared at him. What? If Stannis' accusations gain traction, if lords begin to believe that your children are bastards born of incest, then your marriage to Cersei becomes a liability, Tywin explained. She becomes the woman who cuckolded her king and bastardized the succession. You need to distance yourself from that. Annul the marriage. Declare that you were deceived. That you believed the children were yours, but now have evidence suggesting otherwise. You want me to declare my own children bastards? Robert's voice rose. To delegitimize Joffrey? I want you to survive politically, Tywin said. If you cling to Cersei, if you insist the children are legitimate in the face of mounting evidence, you look weak, deluded. You become a king who can't even control his own wife. But if you annul the marriage, if you cast Cersei aside and acknowledge you were deceived, you become a victim, a wronged husband. You gain sympathy instead of mockery. And what happens to Cersei? To the children? They return to Casterly Rock, Tywin said. Under my protection. They live quietly, away from court, away from power. Cersei will hate it, but she'll be alive. The children will be provided for, and you will be free to remarry, to forge a new alliance that strengthens your position. Robert's mind reeled. Everything Tywin said made cold, ruthless sense. But the cost, publicly declaring that his marriage was a sham, that his children were bastards, that he had been cuckolded for 15 years, the humiliation would be immense. Who would I marry? Robert asked. After such a scandal, what house would offer their daughter? House Tyrell, Tywin said. Marjorie Tyrell. She's currently betrothed to Renly as the price of Reach support. But if Renly's claim collapses, and it will collapse once you announce you're alive and reclaiming your throne, then the Tyrells will need a new path to power. Marry Marjorie. Make her your queen. Give the Tyrells what they want, and they'll bring their 100,000 men to your side, instead of Renly's. Marjorie's a child, Robert protested. She's 16, Tywin corrected. Old enough to marry, and the Tyrells are ambitious enough to overlook the age difference. You need an alliance, Your Grace. The Reach is the largest, richest kingdom in Westeros. Securing them wins you the war. Robert closed his eyes. Saw Lyanna's face, saw the girl he had loved, who had been stolen by Rhaegar, who had died birthing that dragon's whelp. He had married Cersei to bind the Lannisters to his cause, had spent 15 years in a loveless marriage for political gain. And now Tywin was asking him to do it again, to cast aside one wife and take another. All for power, for the throne, for survival. If I do this, Robert said slowly, if I annul my marriage and wed Marjorie Tyrell, you support me fully? Your armies march under my banner? We destroy the Starks and execute Jon Snow? Absolutely, Tywin said. I have no love for the Starks. They hold my son Jaime prisoner. They've allied with Stannis, who is a dangerous fanatic, and they're sheltering a Targaryen pretender. All of that is intolerable. Help me free my son and grandchildren, and I'll help you reclaim your throne. Robert extended his hand. Done. We have an alliance. Tywin shook it. His grip was firm, his expression unchanged. But Robert saw the satisfaction in those green eyes. Tywin had gotten exactly what he wanted. A grateful king who owed him everything. A king who would be beholden to Lannister interests for the rest of his reign. I'm making a deal with a monster, Robert thought. But what choice do I have? Ned betrayed me. Renly usurped me. Stannis is allied with my enemies. Tywin's the only lord powerful enough to put me back on the throne. When do we announce the annulment? Robert asked. As soon as you're strong enough to make a public appearance, Tywin said. 3 days, perhaps. The maester says your infection is healing well, but you need rest. In the meantime, I'll have my scribes prepare the necessary documents. The annulment decree. The declaration of Joffrey's illegitimacy. The formal alliance between houses Baratheon and Lannister. And, he paused, the death warrant for Jon Snow. Robert's eyes gleamed. Make it explicit. I want every sellsword and bounty hunter in Westeros hunting that boy. Offer a lordship to whoever brings me his head. Offer gold. Titles. Whatever it takes. I want Jon Snow to know that he can't hide. Can't run. That every man in the 7 kingdoms is his enemy. It will be done, Tywin said. Though I must warn you, the boy is currently in the field with Robb Stark's forces. They're raiding my supply lines, harassing my patrols. They're good at it too. Robb Stark is proving to be a more competent commander than I expected. Then we crush him, Robert said. Where is Stark's army now? Approximately 30 miles west of here, Tywin said. Near River Run. They destroyed one of my supply depots last week. Killed 300 men. Sir Cavan is coordinating a response, but they're slippery. They hit and run, never stay in one place long enough to pin down. I want to be there when we catch them, Robert said. I want to see Robb Stark's face when we destroy his army. And I want to kill Jon Snow myself, personally. With my warhammer, the way I killed his father. His father was Eddard Stark, Tywin pointed out. His father was Rhaegar Targaryen, Robert snarled. And the son will die the same way. Crushed, broken, screaming for mercy that will never come. Tywin nodded. Rest, your grace. Recover your strength. In 3 days we make the announcements, and then we march to war. He left Robert alone in the chamber. Robert lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. His body was healing. The maester's treatments were working. Within a week he would be strong enough to ride again, to fight again, to reclaim everything that had been taken from him. I'm coming for you, Jon Snow, Robert thought. I'm coming with an army, with Tywin's gold and Tyrell swords and all the fury of a wronged king. You think Ned can protect you? You think hiding behind Stark banners will save you? You're wrong. Dead wrong. And soon, you'll be just dead. He closed his eyes and slept, and dreamed of vengeance. 3 days later, Robert Baratheon stood before the assembled lords of Harrenhal. He had bathed, shaved, dressed in proper clothing for the first time in a month, a black doublet with the crowned stag of House Baratheon emblazoned in gold. His hair was still too long, his face still gaunt from the journey, but he looked like a king again, acted like one. The great hall of Harrenhal was enormous, large enough to house 1,000 men with room to spare. The ceiling soared into shadow. The walls were thick black stone, melted and twisted by dragonfire, and gathered before the high table were the lords and commanders of the Westerlands. Tywin sat at Robert's right hand, Sir Cavan at his left, and arrayed below were houses Crakehall, Lefford, Marbrand, Lannister of Lannisport, and dozens more, all watching their king, all waiting to hear what he would say. Robert stood. The hall fell silent. My lords, Robert began. His voice was strong, carrying to every corner of the hall. I stand before you as a man wronged, betrayed, cast down from my throne by those I trusted most. But I stand before you still, alive, unbroken, and ready to reclaim what is mine. He paused, letting the words sink in. Eddard Stark imprisoned me, made me a prisoner in Winterfell because I discovered a terrible truth. For 14 years, Lord Stark has been sheltering a Targaryen pretender. Jon Snow, the boy he claimed was his bastard, is in fact the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, a dragon's spawn. A threat to the stability of the Seven Kingdoms. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Robert raised his hand for silence. When I demanded that this boy be executed, as is my right and duty as king, Eddard Stark chose the Targaryen over his king. He imprisoned me, imprisoned my Kingsguard, and would have kept me captive indefinitely if I had not escaped. He looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of the assembled lords. I am here because the gods saw fit to preserve me, because Sir Barristan Selmy, the finest knight who ever lived, gave his life to buy me time to reach safety, and because Lord Tywin Lannister has offered me the support and alliance that my own hand denied me. Tywin inclined his head slightly, a gesture of respect that was also a reminder, owed him everything. But there is another matter we must address, Robert continued, a matter of succession, of legitimacy. My brother Stannis has made certain accusations regarding my children. He claims that Prince Joffrey is not my son, that my marriage to Queen Cersei has been built on lies and infidelity. The hall went completely silent. This was the moment, the declaration that would change everything. I have investigated these accusations, Robert said. The lie came easily. He had barely had time to think, let alone investigate. But the appearance of due diligence mattered. I have reviewed the genealogical records. I have consulted with maesters and historians, and I have concluded that there is sufficient evidence to warrant concern about the legitimacy of my children. He paused, letting the shock ripple through the crowd. Therefore, I am issuing the following decree. My marriage to Cersei Lannister is hereby annulled. The union was based on false pretenses. I was deceived regarding the parentage of the children. The annulment is retroactive to the date of our wedding, rendering all children born of that union legally baseborn. Gasps, shocked whispers. Robert pressed on. Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen are no longer in the line of succession. They will be returned to House Lannister's custody when they are freed from captivity. They will be provided for, but they will not inherit the Iron Throne. That right passes to my brothers, first Stannis, then Renly, unless I produce legitimate heirs through a proper marriage. He looked directly at Tywin. The Lord of Casterly Rock's face was impassive, but Robert knew this was exactly what Tywin wanted, the separation of Robert from the tainted Cersei. The public acknowledgement that the children were suspect. The opening for a new alliance. Lord Tywin has graciously offered to assist me in negotiating such a marriage, Robert said. House Tyrell has been approached. Lady Margaery Tyrell has been offered the position of Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. In exchange, House Tyrell will withdraw their support from the usurper Renly and pledge their armies to the rightful king. Me. More whispers. The political calculus was obvious. The Reach's 100,000 men switching sides would end the war almost immediately. Renly's support would collapse. The Tyrells would get what they wanted, a Tyrell queen, and Robert would have the largest army in Westeros at his back. As for the Targaryen pretender, Robert said, his voice hardening, I am issuing the following decree. Jon Snow, also called Jon Targaryen, is hereby declared an enemy of the crown, a pretender to the throne, an abomination and threat to the peace of the realm. Any man who brings me his head will be granted a lordship, lands, and 10,000 gold dragons. Any man who shelters him will be executed for treason. Any house that supports him will be attainted and destroyed. He pulled a scroll from his belt, the death warrant Tywin's scribes had prepared. Unrolled it. Read aloud. By royal decree, Jon Snow, bastard son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, is sentenced to death for treason, pretension to the throne, and conspiracy against the crown. This sentence may be carried out by any subject of the Seven Kingdoms. Proof of death shall be the presentation of the condemned head to the Iron Throne or its representatives. Reward as stated above. Signed and sealed, Robert Baratheon, first of his name, King of the Andals and the First Men. He set the scroll down. Copies of this decree will be sent to every corner of the realm, every castle, every town, every village. I want Jon Snow to know that he cannot hide, cannot run, that every man in Westeros is now his enemy, and I want Eddard Stark to know that his treason has consequences. That protecting a Targaryen pretender will cost him everything he holds dear. The assembled lords erupted in approval. Cheers. Shouts of support. Robert let them continue for a moment, then raised his hand for silence. We march within the week, Robert declared. Combined forces. Lannister and Baratheon. We crush the Stark-Tully alliance. We free my former wife and her children from captivity. We execute the traitors. And we bring the Targaryen pretender to justice. The Seven Kingdoms will know that Robert Baratheon still lives, still rules, and still has the strength to destroy his enemies. The hall exploded in cheers. Lords stamped their feet, raised cups of wine, chanted Robert's name. Robert stood through it all, accepting their acclaim, and felt something he hadn't felt since the crypts of Winterfell. Power, purpose, the certainty that he was doing what needed to be done. I'm coming for you, Ned, Robert thought. I'm coming for your precious Jon Snow. And when I'm done, the Starks will be nothing but a memory and a cautionary tale. This is what happens when you betray your king. This is what happens when you choose a Targaryen over everything else. You're going to lose everything, Ned. Your honor, your family, your life. And it's all your own fault. Tywin leaned close and murmured, Well done, your grace. The lords are with you. Now we translate words into action. How soon can we march? Robert asked. 5 days, Tywin said. We need to coordinate with Sir Kevon's forces at River Run, consolidate our position. But yes, 5 days. Then we move against Robb Stark's raiders, catch them between two armies, destroy them, and send a message to the north that this war is over. And the Tyrells? Robert asked. When do they commit? I've sent ravens to Highgarden, Tywin said, offering the terms we discussed. Mace Tyrell is ambitious, but cautious. He'll want guarantees, contracts, formal wedding agreements. Give him 3 weeks to negotiate, perhaps a month. But once he commits, Renly's cause collapses completely. The Stormland's lords will abandon him. He'll be left with nothing. 3 weeks, Robert repeated. Can we afford to wait that long? We can afford it more than we can afford to move without them, Tywin said. Patience, your grace. War is not just battles, it's logistics. Politics. Making sure that when you strike, the blow is decisive. We have time. Use it wisely. Robert nodded. Patience had never been his strength. But Tywin was right. Better to wait and strike with overwhelming force than rush forward and risk defeat. 5 days, Robert said. Then we start. And we don't stop until Jon Snow's head is on a spike and Eddard Stark is in chains. As you command, your grace, Tywin said, and smiled. A thin, cold smile that promised blood and fire and the complete destruction of House Stark. The news reached Robb Stark's camp 2 days after Robert's speech. They were encamped in a forest 20 miles west of River Run, resting after another successful raid on Lannister supply lines. 2,000 cavalry, battle-hardened northern warriors. And at their center, in a command tent surrounded by guards, sat Robb Stark and Jon Snow. They were reviewing maps when the messenger arrived. A rider from White Harbor, carrying letters that had been sent via Raven to various northern holdfasts, and then compiled and forwarded south. Robb broke the seal on the first letter. Read it. His face went pale. What is it? Jon asked. Robb handed him the letter without speaking. Jon read, Lord Robb, Robert Baratheon has escaped Winterfell and reached Harrenhal. He has allied with Tywin Lannister. He has annulled his marriage to Cersei and declared Joffrey illegitimate. And he has issued a death warrant for Jon Snow. Reward, a lordship and 10,000 gold dragons for his head. The decree has been sent to every corner of the realm. Every sellsword, bounty hunter, and ambitious knight will be hunting Jon now. You need to return to Winterfell immediately. Bring Jon back to safety. This changes everything. Lord Eddard Stark. Jon's hands trembled as he read. He looked up at Robb. 10,000 gold dragons. A lordship. For my head. We're not giving them your head, Robb said firmly. They don't have to take it from you, Jon said. They just have to get lucky. One archer, one poisoned blade. One man inside our camp who decides a lordship is worth more than loyalty. He stood, pacing. Robb, I'm a target now, not just for Robert, for everyone, every desperate man in the Seven Kingdoms. Then we protect you better, Robb said. More guards. You stay in the center of our formations. You don't engage in combat. I become a prisoner, Jon interrupted. Again, just like in Winterfell. Hiding. Hoping someone else will solve my problems. You're not a prisoner, Robb said. You're my brother, and I'm keeping you alive. Jon looked at him, at his brother who had always protected him, who had insisted he come south to prove himself, who had fought beside him in raids and battles, and Jon realized that Robb was right. Staying meant death. Not today, not tomorrow. But eventually, some bounty hunter would get lucky. Some sellsword would put an arrow in Jon's back. Some ambitious knight would challenge him to single combat and win. The death warrant made Jon Snow the most hunted man in Westeros. We need to tell the men, Jon said quietly. They deserve to know that I'm worth 10,000 gold to anyone willing to betray us. The men are loyal, Robb said. The men are human, Jon countered. Some of them have families, debts, dreams of lordship. 10,000 gold is more money than most of them will see in 10 lifetimes. We have to be realistic, Robb. This changes everything. Robb was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. Tonight. We tell them tonight. Give them the choice. Anyone who wants to leave can go. No punishment. No shame. But anyone who stays knows what they're fighting for. Knows the risk. And if they all leave? Jon asked. They won't, Robb said with certainty. These are northern men. Pack. They don't abandon family for gold. But as he said it, Robb wondered if he believed it. Wondered how many of his men would look at Jon Snow and see a brother, and how many would see 10,000 gold dragons walking around on two legs. The answer, he knew, would come soon enough. The price of blood. Robb gathered his men that night. 2,000 northern cavalry assembled in the forest clearing, their faces lit by torches, their expressions uncertain. They had heard rumors, whispers spreading through the camp about letters from Winterfell, about Robert Baratheon's escape, about something involving Jon Snow. Now they would hear the truth. Robb stood on a fallen log so all could see him. Greywind sat at his feet, the massive direwolf's presence a reminder of House Stark's power. Jon stood beside him, ghost pressed against his leg, the White Wolf's red eyes scanning the crowd. Men of the North, Robb began. His voice carried across the clearing. I've called you here because you deserve to know the truth. Not rumors. Not speculation. The truth about what we're facing and what it means for all of us. He held up the letter from Ned. Robert Baratheon has escaped Winterfell. He crossed the neck-losing Sir Barristan Selmy to Crannogman ambush and reached Harrenhal. He's allied with Tywin Lannister. Together they command 50,000 men, possibly more once reinforcements arrive from Casterly Rock. Murmurs ran through the crowd. 50,000 men was a staggering force. Robb's 2,000 suddenly seemed very small. But numbers aren't the worst of it, Robb continued. Robert has issued a formal death warrant for Jon Snow. He's offering a lordship, lands, and 10,000 gold dragons to anyone who brings him Jon's head. The murmurs became shouts. Men looked at each other. At Jon. The calculation was obvious in some faces. 10,000 gold dragons. A lordship. Everything a man could want. I know what you're thinking, Robb said, his voice cut through the noise. Some of you are thinking that's more gold than you'll ever see. That a lordship would change your family's fortune for generations. That betraying one man for that reward makes practical sense. He paused. Let the words hang. Then continued. And you're right, it does make practical sense. If you're the kind of man who values gold over honor, who trades loyalty for coin, who forgets what it means to be pack. His voice hardened. But if that's who you are, I want you gone. Tonight, take your horse. Take your weapons. Ride away. No punishment. No shame. I won't hunt you, won't curse your name. You're free to go seek your fortune however you choose. The clearing was silent now. Every man listening. But if you stay, Robb said, you're choosing something different. You're choosing to fight for a boy who's been hunted since birth for crimes he didn't commit. You're choosing to stand against the king himself because that king wants to murder an innocent 14-year-old for his father's blood. You're choosing honor over gold. Family over fortune. The hard right over the easy wrong. He looked across the assembled faces. Jon Snow is my brother. My father raised him alongside me. He's fought beside us. Bled beside us. And now every sellsword and bounty hunter in Westeros will be hunting him. Anyone who stays accepts that risk, accepts that defending Jon means becoming a target yourself, accepts that Robert will show no mercy to Jon's protectors. Grey Wind stood and growled, a low rumble that made several men step back. Robb placed his hand on the direwolf's head. So I'm giving you a choice. Leave or stay, but choose now. Choose tonight, because tomorrow we ride for River Run, and anyone still with us has made their decision. For a long moment, no one moved. 2,000 men standing in torchlight, weighing gold against honor. Then the small Jon stepped forward. The great Jon's son was a massive man, tall and broad-shouldered. His voice boomed across the clearing. I'm staying. And any man who thinks about collecting that bounty can try going through me first. He looked at Jon. Your pack, Snow. That's all that matters. Someone shouted from the crowd. Pack, another voice called. For the north. The dam broke. Men surged forward, shouting their loyalty, declaring their commitment, drowning out any who might have been considering the bounty. But Robb noticed the ones who didn't shout. Maybe 30 men, scattered through the crowd, their faces uncertain, calculating. After the assembly broke up, Robb pulled Jon aside. 30 men, maybe more. They're thinking about it. I know, Jon said quietly. I saw them too. We give them until morning, Robb said. Anyone who wants to leave can go before we march. After that, everyone who stays is committed, and we watch the ones who looked uncertain. Keep them away from you, just in case. This is going to tear us apart, Jon said. The bounty, the temptation. How do you fight that, Robb? How do you ask men to give up lordships and gold for me? I don't ask them to give it up for you, Robb said. I ask them to give it up for what's right, and most of them will. Because they're Northerners. Because they understand that some things matter more than gold. He gripped Jon's shoulder. But you're right that we need to be careful. From now on, you don't sleep alone. Don't eat alone. Don't ride alone. We keep you surrounded by men we trust absolutely. Small Jon. Daisy Mormont. Me. People who would die before betraying you. That's no way to live, Jon said. It's the only way you're going to live, Robb countered. Accept it. Adapt to it. Or die from it. Those are your options. Ghost pressed closer to Jon, as if understanding the danger. Jon buried his hand in the direwolf's fur and nodded. All right, I'll be careful. But Robb, this can't last. We can't fight a war with me constantly looking over my shoulder. We need to end this. Soon, we will, Robb promised. One way or another, we'll end it. But he didn't say which ending he expected. And Jon didn't ask. By morning, 43 men had left the camp. They departed quietly, in small groups, collecting their possessions and riding away without fanfare. No one tried to stop them. Robb had given his word. They could leave freely, but he made sure to note their names, note their faces. These were men who had chosen gold over loyalty, who had looked at Jon Snow and seen 10,000 dragons instead of a brother. If they showed up later claiming Robert's bounty, they would find the collection significantly harder than expected. The remaining 1,957 men struck camp and prepared to march. Robb reorganized the formations, placing Jon in the center of the column, surrounded by his most loyal warriors. Small Jon commanded Jon's immediate guard, 20 men who had sworn personal oaths to protect him. Where are we going? Jon asked as they mounted up. River Run, Robb said. We need to coordinate with Lord Edmure and the Blackfish. Robert and Tywin will march soon, probably within days. When they do, we need a strategy beyond hit-and-run raids. What strategy? Jon asked. We're outnumbered 20-1. More when the Tyrells join Robert. The Tyrells haven't joined him yet, Robb said. That's our window. If we can hurt Robert badly enough before the Reach commits, we might convince Mace Tyrell that Robert's a bad investment. That backing a wounded king who can barely hold his own forces together is worse than staying neutral. That's optimistic, Jon observed. I'm trying to find options that don't end with all of us dead, Robb replied. Optimism is all I've got. They rode south, moving cautiously through countryside that was increasingly hostile. Lannister patrols were everywhere now, searching for Robb's raiders. Twice they had to divert around major concentrations of enemy forces. Once they watched from a ridgeline as 500 Lannister cavalry rode past, less than a mile away. On the third day, they met a group of refugees fleeing north. 30 people, men, women, children, carrying everything they owned in crude carts. Robb ordered a halt and rode forward to speak with them. What happened? Where are you from? An old man stepped forward, his face lined with exhaustion and grief. Stonehenge, my lord. The Lannisters came yesterday. Rhaegar Clegane and his men. They said we were harboring northern raiders. They said we had to be punished. What did they do? Robb asked, though he already knew the answer. Burned the town, the old man said. His voice broke. Killed anyone who resisted, took the young women. The boys they thought could fight. The rest of us they let go, told us to spread the word. Anyone who helps the northern rebels gets the same treatment. Jon felt sick. This was his fault. The raids he and Robb had conducted, burning supply wagons, killing Lannister soldiers, had provoked this. Clegane's response was to terrorize civilians, to make the cost of helping Stark forces too high to bear. We'll make them pay, Robb said to the old man. I swear it. The Lannisters will answer for this. Begging your pardon, my lord. The old man said, but your oaths don't bring back the dead. Don't rebuild Stonehenge. Don't give us our homes back. He looked at Robb with hollow eyes. You're fighting a war. We understand that. But we're the ones paying for it. Remember that when you're planning your next raid. He turned and led his people north toward whatever safety they could find. Robb watched them go, his jaw tight. He's right, Jon said quietly. We're destroying the Riverlands to fight the Lannisters. The small folk are caught in the middle. I know, Robb said. But what's the alternative? Surrender? Let Robert execute you and call it peace? The war is happening whether we like it or not. We just have to win it quickly enough that the Riverlands has something left when it's over. They continued south. The refugees' words haunted them both. This was what war looked like when you stripped away the songs and glory. Burned towns, dead children. Families turned into refugees. The innocent, punished for the crimes of lords they'd never met. I did this, Jon thought. My existence started this war. My blood. And now people are dying for it. Ghost sensed his distress and pressed closer. Jon took comfort in the direwolf's presence. At least one creature in the world loved him without calculation, without wondering if he was worth 10,000 gold dragons. They reached Riverrun on the 7th day. The castle sat at the confluence of the Tumblestone and Red Fork, its walls high and strong, its gates sealed against siege. Sir Kevin's forces still surrounded it, 15,000 men in siege lines that stretched for miles. But the Lannister positions had been weakened by Robb's raids. Supply shortages, low morale, constant harassment. Robb sent scouts ahead to contact the castle. Within hours, the Blackfish emerged from Riverrun's Watergate with 100 cavalry to escort Robb's forces inside. Brynden Tully looked older than Jon remembered. The famous knight who had been the scourge of the Riverlands for decades now showed his age, gray in his beard, lines in his face, weariness in his eyes. But his voice was still strong when he greeted Robb. About time you got here. We heard you were having fun burning Lannister wagons while we sat under siege. Someone had to keep them distracted, Robb said with a faint smile. How's the situation? Grim, Brynden said bluntly. Kevin's patient. He's content to sit here for months if necessary. We have food. We have water. We have walls. But we can't break out without suffering catastrophic casualties. And Tywin's main force at Harrenhal can reinforce Cavan if we try anything ambitious. That's about to get worse, Robb said. Robert's allied with Tywin. They're combining their armies, probably planning a major offensive within days. We heard, Brynden said grimly. Also heard about the bounty on your brother's head. 10,000 gold. Every cutthroat in Westeros must be sharpening their knives. 43 of my men already left to try their luck, Robb said. The rest stayed loyal. For now. They rode through the Watergate into Riverrun proper. The castle was impressive, smaller than Winterfell but beautifully designed, with high walls, strong towers, and a keep that could be flooded to become an island if necessary. The garrison looked well fed and equipped, but tired. Months of siege had worn them down. Edmure Tully met them in the Great Hall. Catelyn's brother looked haggard. Command had aged him rapidly, but he embraced Robb warmly. Nephew, thank the gods you're safe. And Jon, he turned to Jon. I'm sorry, about the bounty, about everything. This shouldn't have happened. It's not your fault, uncle, Jon said quietly. I'm the one who's Rhaegar's son. I'm the reason Robert's doing this. Robert's doing this because he's a vindictive drunk who can't let go of the past, Edmure said sharply. Don't take responsibility for his madness. They gathered around a great table covered with maps. Brynden, Edmure, Robb, Jon, and the key commanders from both forces. Someone had updated the maps with recent intelligence, Lannister positions, patrol routes, supply lines. All right, Brynden said. Let's be honest about our situation. Robert and Tywin have 50,000 men between them. We have perhaps 25,000 if we count Riverrun's garrison, Robb's cavalry, and the scattered Riverlands forces still holding minor castles. We're outnumbered 2-1. And that's before the Tyrells join Robert, which will make it 5-1. The Tyrells haven't committed yet, Robb pointed out. Robert's only been at Harrenhal for a week. Negotiating with Highgarden takes time, especially when he's asking them to abandon Renly and accept Marjorie marrying a king 20 years her senior, who just annulled his previous marriage. Mace Tyrell is ambitious, but not stupid, Edmure agreed. He'll want guarantees, contracts, proof that Robert can actually win before committing his forces. If we can damage Robert's army badly enough, the Tyrells might decide backing him is too risky. How do we damage an army of 50,000 men with 25,000? Jon asked. We don't fight them directly, Brynden said. We use the terrain. The Riverlands has dozens of river crossings, forests, narrow roads. We force them to divide their forces to search for us. Then we hit isolated detachments. Destroy them piecemeal. Make the campaign so expensive in blood and gold that Robert's support starts crumbling. Guerrilla warfare, Robb said, like the Crannogmen use in the neck. Exactly, Brynden said. We make the Riverlands a death trap. Every ford an ambush. Every forest a killing ground. We turn 50,000 men into a liability instead of an advantage. That only works if we can keep our forces mobile, Edmure said. Riverrun's under siege. We can't move the garrison without abandoning the castle. So we break the siege, Robb said. Attack Kevin's forces. Drive them back. Free Riverrun to maneuver. With what? Brynden asked skeptically. Kevin has 15,000 men. We have maybe 5,000 inside Riverrun and 2,000 with you. 7,000 against 15,000 is suicide. Not if we're smart about it, Robb said. He studied the map, his mind working. Kevan's spread thin. His siege lines circle the entire castle. That's miles of perimeter. He can't defend all of it strongly. He doesn't need to, Brynden countered. He just needs to hold the key positions. The gates, the fords, the supply roads. Then we don't attack the key positions, Robb said. We attack everywhere else simultaneously. Force him to respond in multiple places at once. While he's scrambling to plug gaps, we hit his command post. Kill or capture Kevan. Without their commander, the siege army falls apart. Brynden looked at him with new respect. That's ambitious and risky. If we fail to kill Kevin, we've exposed our forces for nothing. We won't fail, Robb said with certainty. Grey Wind can find Kevan's position. Deru wolves can send commanders from miles away. We strike at night, fast and brutal, decapitate their leadership, and withdraw before they can organize a counterattack. It could work, Edmure said slowly, but it requires perfect coordination. The garrison attacks from inside. Your cavalry hits from outside. And a strike team goes for Kevan. If any piece fails, then we adapt, Robb said. But doing nothing guarantees we lose. At least this gives us a chance. They planned through the night, drawing up attack routes, coordinating timing, identifying where Kevan's command post was likely located based on patrol patterns and supply deliveries. Jon listened to the planning but contributed little. This was beyond his experience. He was a 14-year-old who had trained in Winterfell's yard and fought in a handful of raids. Robb was commanding armies, making strategic decisions that would determine whether thousands of men lived or died. I don't belong here, Jon thought. I'm just the cause, the reason we're fighting. But I'm not a commander, not a warrior, just a boy with the wrong father and a price on his head. After the council ended, Jon found himself alone in the castle's godswood. Riverrun's heart tree was a great oak, not a weirwood, but it served the same purpose, a place for reflection and prayer. Ghost lay beside him, the white direwolf's presence comforting. Jon scratched behind Ghost's ears and stared at the tree. I don't know what I'm doing, Jon whispered. Everyone's fighting for me, dying for me, and I can't even contribute. Can't help. I'm just a burden. Ghost whined softly. Jon felt the connection between them strengthen, the bond that let him sometimes see through Ghost's eyes, feel what the wolf felt. It was growing stronger, More real. The old powers waking. The powers Melisandre talked about, Jon remembered. The warg abilities. Ice and fire. Wolf and dragon. He closed his eyes and reached for that connection, pushed deeper. And suddenly he wasn't Jon Snow anymore. He was Ghost, running through the Godswood on 4 legs, smelling everything, the oak tree's sap, the grass beneath his paws, the scent of men in the castle beyond. The world was sharper through Ghost's senses, more immediate, more real. Jon stayed in Ghost for perhaps a minute, then pulled back, gasping. The transition was disorienting. Being human again felt constrained, limited. "What's happening to me?" Jon whispered. "You're becoming what you were meant to be," a voice said. Jon spun. Melisandre stood at the edge of the Godswood, her red robes bright against the darkness. Her eyes reflected firelight that wasn't there. "How long have you been watching?" Jon demanded. "Long enough to see you slip into your wolf," Melisandre said. She approached slowly. "The old magic, the gift of the first men. You're a warg, Jon Snow, just as your ancestors were. The power flows in Stark blood, and it's waking in you." "I don't want it," Jon said. "I don't want any of this." "Want is irrelevant," Melisandre said. "The Lord of Light has chosen you for a purpose. You are ice and fire, wolf and dragon, the one who will stand against the darkness when it comes." "Stop," Jon said. "Stop with your prophecies and visions. I'm not some chosen hero. I'm just a boy whose father was the wrong person. A boy with a bounty on his head. That's all." "Is it?" Melisandre asked. She moved closer. "Tell me, Jon Snow, do you dream of cold? Of darkness? Of things moving in the night beyond the wall?" Jon froze, because he did dream those things, had dreamed them since childhood. Dreams of ice and shadow. Of dead things walking, of a terrible cold that consumed everything. "How did you know?" Jon whispered. "Because I dream them too," Melisandre said. "The Lord of Light shows me what's coming. The long night. The war between the living and the dead. And you, Jon Snow, standing at the center of it, holding back the darkness with fire and blood." "That's insane," Jon said. But his voice lacked conviction. "The world is insane," Melisandre replied. "And it's about to get worse. Robert Baratheon wants you dead. Tywin Lannister wants you dead. Half the realm wants to collect the bounty on your head. But none of that matters, because the true war hasn't even begun yet. And when it does, you'll understand why you had to survive this. Why all of this, the suffering, the betrayal, the price on your head, was necessary to forge you into what you need to become." She turned and walked away, her red robes swirling. "Sleep well, Jon Snow. Tomorrow your brother launches his attack. Many will die. Perhaps you'll be one of them. Perhaps not. The Lord of Light's plans are not always clear. But know this, your death would doom the living, so try not to get killed." She disappeared into the darkness, leaving Jon alone with Ghost and his racing thoughts. The dead. The darkness. The long night. Ned had told him stories when he was young. Old Nan's tales of the others. Of the long night when darkness covered the world and the dead walked. Of the last hero who fought them with dragonsteel and courage. Children's stories. Legends. But Melisandre believed them. And so did Jon's dreams. He shook his head, trying to clear it. "Tomorrow we fight. Focus on that. Worry about dead things and darkness later." Ghost pressed against his leg. Jon took comfort in the contact and headed back to the castle. He needed sleep, needed to be ready for whatever tomorrow brought. But as he walked, he couldn't shake the feeling that Melisandre was right, that the war with Robert and Tywin was just the beginning, that something far worse was coming, and that somehow, impossibly, Jon Snow, bastard, fugitive, hunted boy, would be expected to stop it. The attack on Kevin Lannister's siege lines began 2 hours before dawn. Robb had divided his forces into 5 strike teams. Each team hit a different section of the siege perimeter simultaneously, creating chaos and forcing Kevon's forces to respond in multiple directions at once. The northern team, led by Small John, hit the camps opposite River Run's north gate. 200 cavalry charged out of the darkness, killing sentries, burning tents, scattering horses. The Lannister soldiers stumbled from sleep into battle, disoriented and unprepared. The southern team struck the supply depot, Galbart Glover led 300 men in a swift raid that torched wagons and killed guards before vanishing back into the forest. The eastern and western teams, each 200 strong, hit the flanks, forcing Cavan to commit reserves to defend positions that didn't really matter. And Robb himself, with Jon the Blackfish and 400 of their best riders, went for the center, for Cavan's command post. Grey Wind led them through the darkness. The direwolf's nose found paths sentries couldn't detect. His ears heard guards before they could raise alarms, and when they encountered opposition, Grey Wind was a terror. 200 pounds of muscle and fangs, tearing through men with savage efficiency. They found Cavan's pavilion a mile behind the siege lines, a large tent surrounded by 50 guards, torches burning, officers coming and going with reports as news of the attacks filtered in. Now Robb whispered. They charged. 400 horsemen thundered out of the darkness. The guards had seconds to react. Some managed to draw swords. Most died before their weapons cleared their sheaths. Robb rode straight for the pavilion. Grey Wind ran beside him, a gray blur in the darkness. Behind them, Jon rode with Small Jon and 20 guards forming a protective wall. Kevan Lannister emerged from his tent, already armored, sword in hand. The man was in his 50s, but still formidable. Broad-shouldered, experienced, dangerous. He saw the attack and immediately started shouting orders. Form ranks! Protect the command post. Send runners to... Grey Wind hit him. The direwolf leaped, covering 20 feet in a single bound. Caught Kevin's sword arm in his jaws and bit down. Kevan screamed. His sword fell. Grey Wind dragged him to the ground. Take him alive, Robb shouted. We need him alive. Small Jon dismounted, pulled Grey Wind back, and secured Kevan with rope. The Lannister commander struggled but couldn't break the huge northerner's grip. Within seconds, Kevan was bound and being dragged toward a horse. Fall back, Robb commanded. We have him. Go. They rode, hard and fast, back toward River Run. Behind them, the Lannister camps were in complete chaos. Men running in all directions, officers shouting contradictory orders, no one sure where the attacks were coming from or what to do about them. By the time they reached River Run's gates, the sun was rising. The castle's defenders had sallied out during the attack, hitting the siege lines from inside, while Robb hit from outside. The coordination had worked perfectly. Ser Kevan Lannister was dragged into River Run's great hall and thrown at Edmure's feet. The Lord of River Run looked down at his captive with grim satisfaction. Lord Kevan, welcome to River Run. I wish I could say it was under better circumstances. Kevan glared up at him, his arm bleeding where Grey Wind had bitten him. This is an outrage. I am a commander under flag of truce. You're a commander we captured in battle, Edmure interrupted. There was no truce, no negotiation. We attacked. We won. And now you're our prisoner. Tywin will destroy you for this, Kevan said. He'll burn every castle in the Riverlands. Kill every man who fought against us. You've doomed yourselves. Tywin's going to do that anyway, Robb said. He stepped forward, still wearing his battle-stained armor. But now he'll have to do it without his most trusted advisor, without the man who executes his plans. You're worth more to us in chains than commanding his armies. Kevan's eyes moved to Jon, studied him. So that's the boy, the Targaryen bastard worth 10,000 gold. Doesn't look like much. Neither did Aegon the Conqueror before he burned Harrenhal to slag, Jon said quietly. Looks can be deceiving. Kevan actually smiled. Brave words. Let's see if you're still brave when Robert Baratheon comes for you with 50,000 men and a warhammer. Lock him up, Edmure ordered. Tower cell. Under guard. He's too valuable to risk. As Kevan was dragged away, Brynden approached Robb. Well done. The siege is broken. Kevan's forces are in full retreat. They're pulling back to regroup without their commander. We've bought ourselves time. How much time, Robb asked. Days. Maybe a week, Brynden said. Tywin will hear about this within hours. He'll march immediately. And when he gets here, he'll have Robert with him. This was a victory, but it's not the end. It's just the beginning of the real war. Robb looked at Jon. Then we use the time we have, fortify our positions, coordinate with Father's forces in the north, and prepare for Robert's assault. And the Tyrells? Edmure asked. Any word on whether they're committing to Robert? Not yet, Robb said. But capturing Kevan might actually help us. It shows Robert's alliance with Tywin is vulnerable, that we can strike back. Mace Tyrell values strength. If we look strong enough, He might hesitate before joining Robert. Or he might decide we're too dangerous and commit everything to crushing us, Brynden countered. The Tyrells are cautious, but once they commit, they don't do anything by half measures. They disperse to their duties, securing the castle, treating wounded, accounting for losses. The raid had cost them 43 men dead, another 70 wounded. A small price for capturing Kevin Lannister, but still 43 families who would receive terrible news. Jon found himself on Riverrun's walls, looking south. Somewhere in that direction, Robert Baratheon was preparing to march. Preparing to come north with an army and a warhammer and 15 years of accumulated hatred. He's going to kill me, Jon thought. Sooner or later, Robert will get through our defenses. Will catch me. And when he does, he'll smash my head the way he smashed Rhaegar's. Ghost pressed against his leg. Jon looked down at the dire wolf. At least you'll be there. When it happens. At least I won't die alone. You're not going to die, a voice said. Jon turned. Robb stood behind him, gray wind at his side. The two direwolves regarded each other, then Ghost moved to touch noses with his larger brother. You can't know that, Jon said. I can, Robb replied. Because I won't let it happen. Neither will Father. Neither will 20,000 northern soldiers who swore to protect you. Robert wants you dead. Fine, he can want. Wanting and achieving are different things. He's the king, Jon said. He has armies, gold, the support of half the realm. And we have the north, Robb said firmly. We have walls and winter and warriors who don't break. Robert thinks this will be easy, that he'll march north, crush us, and claim your head. He's wrong, and we're going to prove it. Jon wanted to believe him, wanted to think that courage and loyalty and northern strength would be enough. But he had seen the maps, seen the numbers, seen how easily 50,000 men could overwhelm 25,000. What if it's not enough? Jon asked quietly. What if we lose? What happens to you? To Father? To everyone who protected me? Then we lose honorably, Robb said. We die knowing we did the right thing, that we didn't sacrifice an innocent boy to save ourselves, that we kept our promises and stood by our pack. He gripped Jon's shoulder. But I don't think we're going to lose. I think Robert's overconfident. I think Tywin's stretched too thin. And I think when winter comes, and it's coming soon, the Southerners are going to realize they made a terrible mistake campaigning in the north. The sun was fully up now. Riverrun's banners, red and blue, the leaping trout of House Tully, snapped in the wind. Somewhere to the south, Robert's banners were probably being raised as well. The crowned stag of House Baratheon. The crimson lion of House Lannister. 2 armies. 2 causes. 1 inevitable collision. And at the center of it all, a 14-year-old boy whose only crime was being born to the wrong father. This is my fault, Jon thought. All of it. The war. The death. The suffering. Because I exist. But even as he thought it, he knew Robb was right. He couldn't control who his parents were. Couldn't change his blood. All he could do was try to be worth the sacrifices people were making for him. Try to prove that Jon Snow, whatever his true name, was worth fighting for. Even if he died proving it. At Harrenhal, Tywin Lannister received word of his brother's capture, with his usual impassive expression. He read the report twice, set it down, looked at Robert Baratheon, who sat across from him in the war room. Your Grace, Sir Kevan has been captured. The siege of Riverrun is broken. The Stark boy led the raid personally. Robert's face went purple. What? Robb Stark attacked at dawn with coordinated strikes on multiple positions, Tywin said. He captured Kevan during the chaos and withdrew before our forces could respond. The siege army is in full retreat. How? Robert demanded. Kevan had 15,000 men. How did a boy with 2,000 cavalry defeat him? By being smarter, Tywin said bluntly. Robb Stark used superior tactics and coordination. He forced Kevan to divide his attention, then struck at the command post directly. It was well executed. Clever. And it cost us dearly. So what do? Robert asked. We march, Tywin said. Immediately, we take our combined forces, 50,000 men, and we crush the Stark-Tully alliance before they can consolidate their victory. We free Kevan. We execute the Stark boy. We capture or kill Jon Snow, and we end this war before winter makes campaigning impossible. How long to prepare? Robert asked. 2 days, Tywin said. We need to organize the supply train, coordinate with our scouts, ensure the route north is clear. But 2 days, then we march. Robert stood, paced. His hand unconsciously went to his side where his warhammer would hang once he was armored. I want Jon Snow alive. When we capture him, and we will capture him, I want him brought to me alive. I want to kill him myself, personally. I want him to know who's killing him, and why. Alive will be difficult, Tywin observed. The bounty encourages people to bring his head, not the boy himself. Then increase the bounty for bringing him alive, Robert said. 20,000 gold for his head, 50,000 for him breathing. A lordship either way. Make it worth the extra effort. Tywin made a note. It will be done. Though I must point out, the longer we wait, the more time the Stark boy has to prepare defenses. And winter is approaching. Within weeks, perhaps a month, snow will make northern campaigning nearly impossible. Then we don't wait, Robert said. 2 days. We march in 2 days. And we don't stop until River Run is ashes and Jon Snow is dead. After Robert left, Tywin sat alone in the war room, studying maps. The situation was more complex than he had let on. Kevan's capture was a significant blow, not just strategically but personally. Kevan was his brother, his most trusted advisor, the man who had stood beside him for decades. The Starks will pay for this, Tywin thought. Robb? Eddard? All of them. They took what's mine. I'll take everything they have in return. But he was also pragmatic enough to recognize reality. The Stark boy was clever, more clever than Robert, certainly. Possibly more clever than Tywin had given him credit for. Underestimating young Robb had already cost them dearly. No more underestimation, Tywin decided. From now on, we treat Robb Stark as a serious threat. We commit overwhelming force. We crush him utterly, leave nothing to chance. He called for his commanders. Within hours, Harrenhal was preparing for war. Supplies were loaded onto wagons. Soldiers assembled into marching formations. Siege equipment was prepared. Trebuchets, battering rams, everything needed to break River Run's walls if necessary. And in the center of it all, Robert Baratheon donned his armor for the first time in years. The black plate, with the crowned stag, the warhammer that had ended the Targaryen dynasty. He looked at himself in a polished shield that served as a mirror, saw a fat old man pretending to be the warrior he'd been 15 years ago, saw the gray in his beard, the lines in his face, the evidence of too much wine and too little discipline. I'm not the man I was, Robert admitted to himself, but I'm still a king, still dangerous when cornered. And Jon Snow is going to learn that the hard way. He lifted the warhammer, felt its weight. It was heavier than he remembered. Required both hands to wield properly now, where once he'd swung it one-handed. 15 years, Robert thought. 15 years since I killed Rhaegar, since I won my throne, and now his bastard son is making me fight for it all over again. But this time would be different. This time Robert had Tywin's gold and armies, had the support of the Westerlands, would soon have the reach once Marjorie's marriage was formalized. This time, the dragon would die before the war even truly began. Robert set down the warhammer and left his chambers. Outside, 50,000 men were preparing to march north, to war, to vengeance. And somewhere ahead of them, in River Run's halls, Jon Snow waited, not knowing that the full fury of the South was about to descend on him, not knowing that Robert Baratheon was coming, with an army, with a warhammer, and with 15 years of hatred ready to be released in one brutal final blow. The war was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But one way or another, it would end soon. With Jon Snow dead and Robert triumphant. Or with Robert dead and a Targaryen pretender escaped, the realm held its breath and waited to see which way the gods would decide. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.